I want to thank all of you for making the time to be here this evening to have a discussion with me about a quite controversial topic, the flu, right? Isn't it interesting that is a controversial topic and that people actually start to have an emotional reaction when you talk about the flu or flu shot, or like Les said, well, I committed a sin, I got the flu shot. You know, the fact that you feel like that, you know, so it's very interesting. It's very, like, if we look at the human behavior, isn't it? It's very interesting. Or I, on the other hand, that don't get the flu shot, depending on which circle of friends or where I'm at, you know, I either say it with pride or I kind of am a little nervous or hesitant, right? So, but tonight is not about that. You know, tonight is not about having an emotional talk. Tonight is not about having a philosophical talk. Tonight, we're going to have a scientific talk. And my goal, as it is with every workshop, as it is with every one of your visits or handouts, is really to provide you evidence-based intervention. Meaning, is there evidence behind what we do? And if you hear some other things, well, where is that evidence coming from? Or where is that science coming from? See, there's a big gap. And if you've been to my other workshops, we talk about this. There's a big gap between what science tells us, what the research tells us, and how our doctors deliver it, and how our doctors practice it. And why is there such a gap? That's probably actually a whole nother hour-long conversation, which we're not going to have tonight, but there is that gap. And so tonight, I'm going to try, when it pertains to the flu and the flu shot, we're gonna try to bridge that gap. Now, I always ask at the beginning of class, is there a particular thing you want to get out of me from this class? And some of you shared, I want to know how to strengthen my immune system. I want to know about, about the flu shot more so. And I want to know how I cannot get as sick as I did last year, right? So good news, I will cover all three of those things, okay? Now, as I share with you, tonight we're going to be about science. Now, I want to share something with you about science. What is the purpose of science? The purpose of science is to find out what's right. It's not to prove my own personal belief system to be right, because that's quite possible and that happens a lot. But science and the application of science, it's supposed to be indifferent. And the beautiful thing is we have the research that's indifferent, that's pure science, that's showing us what is right. That it's not taking a preference on somebody's beliefs, but it's actually showing us true facts. And tonight, the articles that I reference and I give you, you can Google them. That's why you got the printout. I have some of them. You can ask Sarah to photocopy them. If there's a part of the things that you need more scientific backing, I can get you all those articles. I can get you completely independent research that's not paid by anyone that has a stake in it, if you will. When I used to teach this workshop, I used to begin with how to strengthen your immune system, and then we talked about the flu shot, just very little. I switched it around this year, so you're lucky. So why did I switch it around? Because I want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the flu shot. You know, that because people have such a visceral response to it, let's talk about it right away. Let's distinguish the facts from the dogma. Let's see how it applies in everyday life. Because here's the thing. The moment December 1st comes, which is actually this year, I feel like it started on October 1st, we're all bombarded with flu shot propaganda. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go tonight, right? Your grocery stores, I haven't seen our Starbucks yet, but grocery stores, schools, your employer, right? Everywhere you turn, health fairs, everywhere you turn, the flu shot is available. It's encouraged, your employer is now demanding it. And it's come to the point where, you're getting gift cards for getting a flu shot. I mean, we have to break down to that. Now let's talk about flu vaccines versus fiction. Why do we get the flu shot? Why does the CDC, why does our government recommend that we get flu shots? Is it so that we don't get the flu? No. Flu shot does not say the manufacturers of the flu shot, the flu vaccine, do not guarantee that you won't get the flu, do they? No. Does the flu shot guarantee us? So it doesn't guarantee us that we won't get sick from the flu. So why do we get it? Well, they say, when we do get the flu, we won't get as sick. That's usually the second kind of argument out there. well, what is a sick, right? Is it even studied? Do we even know, do we have any backing towards that? We don't. There is no research articles that support that at all. Then what is the most third common thing thrown at us about the flu vaccine when you watch the news? Get the flu shot because X amount of people die from the flu every single year. So flu shots prevent death. That's the only argument the flu shot has, or the flu vaccine manufacturers have. Now let's look at really how often does the flu shot prevent death? And out of that, is it really applicable for you and me and for our population? So one of the studies I'm referencing is, by the way, if you look at the amount of deaths, so if you went on the cdc.gov website and you looked at the amount of deaths from the flu, you'll get a number. But here's one thing you need to know. That number contains and does not differentiate between pure flu-induced deaths, ammonia-induced deaths, and flu-induced secondary conditions that now led to death. They're all grouped in the same category. So people that die from an pneumonia, we assume and categorize as an influenza death, and that's how it's reported. Now, does sometimes when you get a flu, does that lead to a secondary infection? And one of the examples, secondary infection, is pneumonia? Absolutely, yes, it does. However, most of the deaths, if you look at these stats that the CDC puts out, and this research article, many others have actually taken these stats and broken them down. Let's look at what this data says. It's telling us that actually pneumonia is the #1 cause of death during the flu season. It's not the flu in itself. And the numbers are right here. So this is a 2008-2009 study. 34,000 out of 36 deaths are due to pneumonia. So that means only 2,000 deaths are due to, quote unquote, flu alone, if you will. Now here's another startling fact that you'll get from a later article or reference is patients that have severe cardiovascular illnesses. So like, for example, they have heart attacks and are recovering during the flu season, do not receive flu shots in the hospital because they're so severely ill. So if they die from their heart condition during a flu season and they did not get a flu shot, they're reported as a flu-related death or because of the absence of the flu vaccine. So these numbers are artificially inflated because we don't have a clear definition and we have allowed other categories to be put in that category. Now, what's really interesting is that pneumonia, let's talk about, does the flu vaccine prevent an pneumonia or develop a pneumonia? Pneumonia happens in the same rate in vaccinated and unvaccinated populations. So the flu vaccine by itself does not prevent us from a pneumonia. And flu shots do not prevent that from the flu or pneumonia, and I'll get to that statistic later. So the next study, it's mortality reduction with the influenza vaccine in patients with pneumonia outside the flu season. Interesting that they stated this. First, although there's been few randomized control trials to be completed, by the way, what is the gold standard of research in science? It's something called a double-blind study. What does that mean? It means that I, as an administrator of the experiment, don't know who is the control group that gets the sugar pill and who is the study group that gets the flu shot. So it's blind, double, so there's two control groups we can play. To this date, there has never been a study done where we take this gold standard, where I take two groups, random groups of people, and I expose them to the flu virus, influenza, and then I give one group a flu shot and the other don't, expose them to flu shot, and I see what happens. That study has never, ever, ever been done, and it's never going to be done because it's immoral. Because it wouldn't be nice for me to make you sick from a flu and not make you sick, or protect you and not protect you. Make sense? So these studies that we take as gold standards, that we apply at pharmaceutical stores, drugstores, will never be done towards vaccination. So always keep that in mind. So anyways, but what we have done is looked at the populations of people that have had the flu shot, have not, and then compared them. And so in all the studies, there has been no statistical support of mortality benefit of influenza vaccination. So out of all the years we've been vaccinating, statistically, we're not making a difference in the amount of people that are not dying or that are dying because we're preventing with the flu shot. Here's the second and most startling fact for me, was that over the last 2 decades in the United States, even though the vaccination rates among the elderly have increased from 15 to 65%, there has been no decrease in hospital admissions or all-cause mortality. So even though we're vaccinating more, we've made no difference in people going to the hospitals because of flu or dying because of all-cause mortality, so all causes of death. In fact, both admission rates and mortality in those of 65 years of age or more have increased with increased vaccine coverage over time. That means even though we're vaccinating more, 65% of our elderly are getting vaccinated, we have not reduced how frequently they go to the hospital. We have not reduced the cause of death. We're actually seeing the opposite. We're seeing the rise of hospitalizations, and we're seeing the rise of death in the elderly 65 years of older. Second study, influenza vaccination and mortality, differentiating vaccine effects from bias. By the way, all of these are from medical journals, American medical journals. So it's not British Medical Journal, which is actually probably less biased and accepts more articles than our American counterparts. So these are all reputable, referenced sources. So to get published in these journals, it takes a tremendous amount of cleanness in your study and the respect of your peers. So this is what the differentiating vaccine effects from bias study says. In meta-analysis of results from 20 cohort and case control studies, this gentleman, I can't pronounce his name, found that flu shots reduce winter deaths by 50% on average. And in more recent study by this guy right here, it's reported that there's been a 48% reduction in all case mortality. So there's some evidence out there, some study out there is suggesting that we're actually reducing death by 50%. One thing that wasn't included in your article is that, and I'm sorry, in your handout, on the bottom right here, there was a second that I just accidentally omitted. Kaiser Permanente study over the 9 flu seasons, so over 9 years, has found a 46% death reduction in their members when they receive a flu shot. Now, how did they come up with these numbers? So let's look at it. So this same article, by the way, is a 20-page article that looks at 20 studies and other case studies over several year period and then breaks down the statistics. So this is initially what these 2 researchers have found and reported now to the doctors. By the way, let me take that back. If somebody, a sales rep, came to me and said, here is something that if your patients take it, 50% of your patients will never have back pain, I will give you that. It would be wrong of me not to give you that. That wouldn't be very loving of me, right? So this is the statistic that gets reported to your primary care physician and, to the CDC, who serves as an advisory board and puts a mandate on the flu shot or not. So here's the numbers. So this is very interesting. Now you have to be a little bit of a mathematician to follow this. So what did they really find? What they found is, and I'm going to take this globally, if one study, so the first guy, I couldn't pronounce his name, this guy, he's found that out of 1,000 people that got vaccinated, 7.8% of them, so 8 people, died from the flu. Again, no differentiation between if it's truly a pneumonia or flu, but they died because we're saying flu. Now, out of 1,000 people that did not get the flu shot, 9.8% people died. Let's say 10 people died. So what's the difference? 2 people. 2 people is the difference. That's the absolute difference, is 2 people. If I developed a weight loss strategy that for somebody to lose 30 pounds, I needed to see 100 people for one person to lose it, would that be a successful strategy? No, it wouldn't be a successful strategy. Yet that's a strategy we apply towards the flu or the influenza vaccination. Now, how did they get to the number 50% and 47%? So in the other study, so the second guy right here, Nicholas, if you looked at his, he said that in his study, the people that got vaccinated out of 1,000, 4.6 of them died, so 5. And the people that did not get vaccinated, 9.8. So that kind of number stayed the same. So what's the difference? We're talking about 5 people, 4.5 people, right? So how did they get to the 50%? So watch this. So they took the 4.6 vaccine effectiveness estimate amounts, divided it by 9.8, and came up with 47%. So this is a relative difference, not an absolute difference. See, if one person dies that's been vaccinated and 2 people died that did not vaccinate, there's an improvement in life of 50%, right? They're allowed to say that. And that's what they report to us. So when Channel 9, 7, 10 News, all these news comes out there and says, flu shots save lives, that's the numbers they're talking about. They're talking about a relative difference, not an absolute difference. And by the way, sidetrack, I love to teach my cholesterol talks, my favorite, more favorite than this talk, is because they do this with all sorts of medication. They report relative differences, not absolute differences. So be careful. So is this good science? Well, it would be good if they would tell us what kind of differences and not made this relation, right? All right. So the National Vital Statistics Report, this is that's been compiled, so 2001 to 2005, shows that only 1,300 people a year die due to influenza alone. Now, here's an interesting thing that when I was looking at this, in 2001, 257 people died. In 2002, 727 people died. In 2003, 1,800 people died. 2004, 11, 2005, 1,800. What trend are you noticing here? Do you think there's been more people vaccinated against the flu or less people vaccinated against the flu as the years go on? Absolutely. So the flu vaccine does not prevent pneumonia or cardiovascular disease. And again, I shared with you so from this statistic, you can go up through here and type in the year. You'll find that the fact that, we're not preventing pneumonia, we're not preventing really death, statistical valid death, and what's the sad part is the sickest cardiovascular patients that don't get vaccinated, then their deaths are attributed to the lack of flu vaccine. So it's very interesting. Now, this is the article I told you I ordered online. Dr. Cameron doesn't know that yet, but I figured $34 and put it up front, and people, because we're not conspiracy theorists. I have good friends that say, you're a chiropractor, so you don't vaccinate or you don't get the flu shot. No, it's not because I'm a chiropractor. It's because of the reading I've done. It doesn't matter. It's because of the reading we've done. So here's the thing. FACA, this is what I've ordered and will be in our lobby, is a 120-page manuscript of a ruling of the against the CDC and the FDA advisory board. Now, who makes these recommendations? The CDC and the FDA. And who are these people? What are these committees made out of? Who are these people that make up these committees? Well, what's interesting, so in 2000, they have basically the people have sued the CDC and the FDA because we have found strong links between the advisory board and their ties to the pharmaceutical industry. And so the conclusion of the article and the judge, and so this is the manuscript, said, how confident in the safety and need of specific vaccines would the doctors and parents be if they learned the following? The members, including the chair of the FDA and the CDC advisory committees, which, by the way, were fired in 2000 after these findings, made decisions towards a vaccine when they own stock in the drug companies that make the vaccines. Individuals on both advisory committees own patents for vaccines under construction or are affected by the decisions of the committee. Here's what really made me sad and angry at the same time. I'm getting emotional. I told you I wouldn't. Is that the CDC grants conflict of interest waivers to every member of their advisory committee 1 year at a time. They have to just say, yes, I owe like $200,000 worth of stocks in this pharmaceutical company, or yes, I own the patent in this vaccine, and they can stay on the board. They just have to admit it. And the fourth, the CDC Advisory Committee has no public members to serve. So there's no parents, there's no, healthcare practitioners out there that are practicing that are serving and giving the feedback of this really happening. And the FDA's committee only has one public member. That is just sad. It's a crime. It's a crime against our nation. So, that's scary, right? So now you have some literature to back you up. I didn't want to get too technical, but you have the literature to back you up. You have, it's in the print, it's available to all of us. And I'm not asking you to go out and research these things. That's why Dr. Cameron and I are here, okay? Now, I love this quote. Quality questions create a quality life. Michelle will laugh at this. So what prompted my change in the talk was there's this wonderful moms group in the community where I live in, and one of the moms posted a question, where did you take your child for a flu shot? And I thought that was interesting. It's about the questions we ask. The quality of questions we ask will determine the quality of the life we live. So my question always is, and how I approach the people that I see is like, what can you do to make yourself strong, to make your own innate potential shine so that you don't get sick from the flu? And even if you get sick from the flu, again, what can you do for your own body so that you're not that, what was it, 4.6% or 9.8% that succumb to death because of the flu? Why do we get the flu in the first place? Why is flu seasonal? I mean, does it get on the train from Canada and starts attacking us September 1st, October 1st, whenever and then it leaves April 1st? Mm-hmm. My mom works in a hospital system. She's one of the few that declines the flu vaccine. So she has to wear a mask. Poor thing has to wear a mask from December 1st through April 1st. So what is it magical about April 1st? What causes the flu? How does the body's innate immunity operate? How is the innate immunity compromised? Because you have this thing called the immune system, right? Is it functioning some of the time? No, it's functioning all the time. Is it in some of us and not others? No, it's in all of us. I mean, we are born with the greatest gift, and the greatest gift is our immune system. Now, what causes the flu? So this Cohen guy has done some phenomenal research on colds and flus and susceptibility to the common cold. And he said, in other words, it's not the seed, it is the soil. It has been shown to be true many times. Perhaps one of the best known studies was by Cohen in 1991, where they exposed all subjects to the cold virus, but only those that were stressed developed a cold. So this was that gold standard. Let's say 100 people, we were all exposed to the cold virus. Who got the cold? It was the stressed people. So what is it then? The cause of us getting a flu or cold, or for that matter, any kind of an illness, it's about the state or the function of our immune system. It is how robust is our immune system. and there's two factors to our immune system. One is how much stress are we placing on our immune system every single day? And second, how many nutrients are we feeding our immune system every single day? Let's talk about stress. What happens during stress? This comes my whiteboard. You have something called the brain, very important. Here's the spinal cord. Here's your heart. Here's your digestive tract. Here are your lungs. Here are your muscles in your legs, your arms. When you wake up in the morning and everything's relaxed, you don't turn on the CNN, constantly negative news. Day's going smoothly, good morning. Your body's in a state of a perfect balance between something called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. And the parasympathetic. What are these two systems? They're basically, think about it as different parts of the brain, which is really not a very technical way to describe that, but they're just different states, different functions of your nerve system. And when you're calm, when it's a good day, there's a perfect balance between these two. When there's a perfect balance between these two, your heart beats at about 60 beats per minute. Your immune system is checking its environment. Is there influenza around? Is there, this bug around, that bug around? Scanning constantly. If you just ate a piece of sandwich, your digestive tract, your stomach enzymes your stomach acid goes up to break down the food, your gallbladder, your liver are all working to digest this food down. Red blood cells are rushing to pull the nutrients. You're digesting food. Once it's digested, whatever is not taken up, you go to the bathroom. You have a bowel movement. This is balance. Now you rush out the door, and as you're driving to work, you witness a car accident. Stress, right? It's a stressful event. It's right in front of you. So what happens? You shift gears. You go from this calm state to something called the sympathetic dominance. You're in what's known as fight or flight. We all have it. All mammals have it. All beings have it. It is essential to our existence because before we were professionals, we were hunters and gatherers. We needed to hunt and know where danger is and where safety was. When we witnessed a bear, we needed to recognize that bear is danger, I need to run away. So our nerve system's been designed to shift us to something called, the sympathetic dominance. And what happens under that? There's these two glands, walnut-sized glands, called the adrenal glands. They're right back here. That secrete cortisol and catecholamines, really adrenaline. And now these little molecules or hormones go to your brain and say danger, 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 alert. Now under that, your heart that was pulsating 60 beats per minute now goes up to 100. Because why? You have to be alert. You have to slam on your brakes. You have to swerve. You have to do something to run away from your threat. So now your heart pumps faster to take all the blood from the inside, from your core, from your digestive tract, your immune system, your reproductive tract, and push it to the muscles. Your big skeletal muscles, your quads, your biceps, your tricep, because you're ready to fight. Run away from the bear, run away from the accident. Okay? Now, under that influence, because it's all about survival, your body doesn't care if there's influenza around. Your body doesn't care you just ate a sandwich. Your body doesn't care that you're just ovulating. It needs to protect you first, because if you're not alive, what's the point, right? So under the influence of cortisol and catecholamines, you are in this sympathetic dominance. Is this a healthy state? Yeah, it is. It is temporarily to help you fight the situation. Now, when it becomes chronic, when you go from the car accident, traffic, to work piling up, to child being sick, to this stress, that stress, you sleep late, not eat the right food, you don't have supportive relationships. Your body, by the way, bear, car accident, screaming child, lack of sleep, bad food, It's all the same message. Stress, go into fight or flight, release cortisol, release catecholamines, fight the situation, okay? Now, if you stay like that, yes, then that's a pathology. Then that's not healthy. Now, how do these people look like? High blood pressure, infertility, compromised immune systems, right? So these are the people, so now relating it to the cold or flu, if you're constantly chronically under stressors, your body downregulates to keep you alive, and because of this downregulation, your immune system plummets. I always tell people when they prepare for vacation, please don't do everything on your to-do list, because you'll end up going to Cabo or Cancun, you'll end up being sick, right? How many times do you hear that, right? Right? So it's these hormones, you know, we're the puppets of them, you know? Now, here's the beautiful thing. Once we know that, we can do things to combat that. We're not a victim of that. We can have complete control of that. The second variable is that the state of our immune system requires nutrients to keep it robust, to keep it healthy. You heard me say this. For those of you that garden, I really don't. But if you plant a plant and you notice that it's wilting and turning brown, do you rip it out and throw it away, say, bad plant? Or do you say, it needs more water, maybe it needs more minerals, maybe it needs a different pH, maybe it's a wrong position in my yard, maybe it needs more sun, less sun, right? You go to the environment, you go to its genetic requirements to feed it so it can prosper, correct? So same thing with our bodies. We have genetic requirements. Vitamins, the Latin, you heard me say this, the Latin breakdown of it is vital for life. We don't make them. We require them to exist. So how do we get them? Eating foods. That's how we get them. So how many vitamins? There's 14 essential vitamins and 15 essential minerals, and there's also amino acids. I'm not going to go into them, but those are the basics. We need basic nutrition for our body just to live, to function. Second question. Why is flu seasonal? What changes in the winter? Do we get more people sick from flu during winter months and summer months? Absolutely. But do people get sick from flu during summer and spring and early fall? Absolutely. But why such a large shift in seasons? Interesting. So in today's society, you work in the same environment. There's not much difference in how confined you are, how much time you spend in confined spaces. But many people go to that. Sunshine. The main reason why we suffer from the flu during these winter months is because we have lack of skin exposure to the direct sunlight. What does direct sunlight do? Direct sunlight causes your body to produce vitamin D, which, by the way, is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. And what does vitamin D have to do with our immune system? We thought only a long time ago, we used to think it only had something to do with strong bones and teeth, right? Rickets was rampant in the Northeast in the 40s and the 50s because the kids were not exposed to the sunshine, right? Because of the long winters. And so the cure was sunshine and then vitamin D supplementation, right? But vitamin D is not only important for the bones and teeth, it's important for immune system. Why? Because your vitamin D signals your body to produce antimicrobial peptides. These are very unique antibodies that your body has that fight bacteria and viruses. And vitamin D is one of the only hormones that does this. So we know that these endogenous defense mechanisms directly destroy microorganisms, and antimicrobial peptides display broad spectrum antimicrobial activity, including antiviral activity, and have been shown to inactivate the influenza virus. This is one of the reasons why the flu is seasonal. Oh no, this is the reason why the flu is seasonal. This is the reason why some of us, like Dr. Cameron, he's my guinea pig, you know. Mm-hmm. How many times do people breathe on him? Breathe in, breathe out. When he adjusts, right? Breathe in, breathe out. He's right there. He can't get much closer, you know. He's right there. Do people come here when they're sick? Of course, all the time. But how is it that he doesn't get sick?
He surfs all the time.
He surfs all the time. He does, yeah, which is a stress. We'll go to stress reduction, what that does. I'm not promoting surfing, by the way.
You missed a few.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good. So, vitamin D. Now, here's another great article for those of you they want to copy. Ask Sarah, and she will do it. So, I pulled this up because I was really interested in kids. And fascinating study. I didn't have a chance to put it in the PowerPoint. They followed people that supplemented with 2,000 IUs of vitamin D for 3 years or more. And what was the likelihood, or how many of them that get the flu is within those 3 years? So those were pretty, religious people about taking 2,000 IUs, which, by the way, is most people say, will stick around 500 to 1,000. So 2,000 for 3 years. None of them had the flu. None of them had the flu. This article will show you that if you supplement kids with 1,200 IUs of vitamin D, the prevention of the flu is 70%. And that is, you should ask me, is it absolute or relative? Remember? It's absolute. So, something to read. All right, so let's talk about prevention. Vitamin D sufficiency. What do I mean by that? Here's another important, I guess you can quote me in this. We cannot supplement out of, vitamin out of, or medicate out of conditions we behave ourselves into. Make sense? We can't take enough pill for something that's caused by our behavior. It doesn't exist. Look at the weight loss. Classic example of that, right? Okay. Now, when I talk about vitamin D sufficiency, we're not talking about treatment of the flu. We're talking about you keeping your immune system robust so that it can do its job, because it's constantly doing its job. By the way, anytime you sneeze, that's your immune system saying, uh-oh, there's a influenza, let's pick it, I'm going to propel it out. Sneezing is an act of mechanically getting rid of it. Running a fever is a chemical and mechanical way of you frying off the bacteria. That's why we cook food, right? To make sure that we kill off any bad bacteria, because there are some bad bacteria in our food, I'm sure. So vitamin D sufficiency. So we all need to supplement vitamin D come September 1st. So how much? Men, 5,000 IUs a day. Women, 4,000 IUs, and kids, 1,200 IUs a day. So that's men, 5,000. Women, 4,000, kids, 1,200 IUs. This is what I do for Dorian, for those of you that ask about kids. I take 5,000. I take one of these caplets, I just put a little needle in and just give him one drop. So you can do that, or you can just get the little droppers. It is the safest, most natural way of how to keep your immune system robust. Omega sufficiency. What do we mean by omega sufficiency? Fish oils, yeah. So when we talk about omegas, we mainly talk about omega-3s. Omega-3s are the most potent, powerful anti-inflammatories. And what do anti-inflammatories do? Reduce inflammation. Because bugs, germs, can only thrive in inflammatory states. They don't thrive in pH that's 7. Viruses, bugs, germs, bacteria, funguses, they all thrive in acidic environments. Test your pH, by the way. So get a little litmus paper from Sprouts. First urine of the morning should be slightly acidic. It should be around 6. Okay? But as your day goes, you should be more basic. That means the food you're eating are keeping you from being inflammatory. Okay, so it's a fun way to test. You can see what coffee does to you. Then you can see how sensitive you are to coffee too. Yeah.
Maybe you don't.
So you need omega, or maybe you don't want to know. You need omega sufficiency. So those are your fish oils. Now, having said that, most of you think bottle, right? Supplement. I don't want you to think like that. I want you to think food. Because when you take something from food, you also have all the other enzymes that your body needs to break down and incorporate that good nutrient, that essential nutrient, so now it can do its jobs. So where do you get your omega sufficiencies? Salmon, right? Cold water fish. Choose wild. Always choose wild. Okay. Nuts and seeds. Now, we talk about omega-3s, they're the most powerful, but don't ignore omega-9s and omega-6s. The healthy omega-6s, not from cheese and butters, but from nuts and seeds. So Les came to my oil class. We did a whole workshop about healthy oils. So buy different kinds of oil, safflower oil, extra virgin olive oil, grapeseed oil, coconut oil, and take teaspoons of it and put it in your smoothies, in your milkshakes, over your, instead of butter, pour it on your vegetables and saute. Those healthy fats are anti-inflammatory in nature. So don't be afraid of fats. If you look at how our hunters and gatherers ate, they ate more fat and protein than we ever do, and they were never obese or overweight. Never. And they didn't suffer from the chronic illnesses we were from today. The next was we need probiotic sufficiency. What are probiotics? Probiotics are healthy bacteria that live on us and in us to constantly combat the negative bacteria or the bad bacteria. So 80%, by the way, we have something like 3 trillion bacteria living on us that are healthy. That's an incredible amount. Okay, so what is mainly your probiotics will be on your skin and on your digestive tract, and for us ladies, the vaginal tract. Okay, so diets high in sugar kill probiotics because we also constantly have bad bacteria living on us. But it's about that balance that keeps us from being healthy versus being sick. So when we eat a diet high in sugar, that's a growing medium for all the germs. Then those germs over dominating our healthy bacteria start to go down. So we need healthy probiotics. Now, where do those probiotics come from? Think fermented foods, yogurt, but even better than yogurt, because you know what they do with yogurt? They make yogurt. It's not like the old way of making it where you actually ferment the milk. They make the yogurt, pasteurize it, homogenize it, so kill everything. They make it, then they kill it, and then they add it back. They add back the synthetic that's been grown on sugar beets and sometimes yeast, which you don't want. You don't want anything grown on yeast because then it'll grow in you, and you don't want yeast infection. So what are these healthy foods then? Kefir. Any of you familiar with kefir? It's a drink. It's like drinkable yogurt. It has a little bit more of a tangy flavor. Sauerkraut. Something called kombucha, which I just started brewing. So come Dr. Cameron's birthday in the office, I'm serving my home brewed kombucha. Also think about, there is a couple of Greek cheeses that are fermented, and they'll say fermented cheese. So there are some dairy products that are fermented. So fermented foods, but kefir is the best way. It's like the most pleasant way. All these other things people go a little uneasy about. So kefir, you know, even for kids, they sell them in little pouches instead of yogurts or those juicy or those fruit things. So kefir is the best. All right. Next is eat high amount of fruits and vegetables fresh that have a high concentration of vitamin C. Vitamin C is it's a mineral, vitamin, pardon me, it's not a mineral, it's not an enzyme, it's a vitamin that triggers your white blood cells and it boosts your immune system. Now, overdosing on synthetic vitamin C is not the way, okay? You will get, if you focus on eating 5 servings of fresh and raw, green and orange fruits and vegetables a day, you'll get plenty of vitamin C. You don't need it from a bottle. You get plenty from just eating what your body requires. Eat the innate diet. So we'll do a talk in January all about the innate diet, but basically stay away from anything that's not genetically determined by our bodies. So what are we genetically supposed to eat? Protein, animal protein, nuts, seeds, fruits, and vegetables. Everything else we made up along the way. Grains, we made up along the way. Crackers, we made up along the way. Ice cream, we made up along the way. Okay? So you've heard this. You heard this for weight loss, but you haven't heard it for your health. To be healthy, shop on the outside aisles of the grocery store, right? On the outside aisles. So do not consume, so minimize, especially your simple carbs and your sugars. Here's the thing about glucose. Glucose and vitamin C are very similar in molecular structure, and they attach to the same receptor sites on the cells. So when you eat a diet high, this is why I tell you can't vitamin out of something you behave yourselves into. So if you eat, all the holidays are coming, cookies and Halloween treats and all these things, and then you're taking vitamin C to help your immune system, the glucose competes with the same door on your immune system cells, and it shuts down how your vitamin C's job should be. It literally bullies vitamin C out. This is one of the main reasons why diets high in sugar plummet your immune system. Not to mention they feed into bad bacteria, and they change the pH of your body. Exercise daily. How much exercise? Half an hour. Where your heart rate is high, where you can't carry on a conversation. So golfing doesn't count. Walking the mall doesn't count. SeaWorld, all these places we're just walking leisurely, they don't count. Now, why exercise? When you exercise your brain, temporarily what you do is you do increase your cortisol levels because you're putting a stress or demand on your body. But at the same time, your brain is producing happy molecules, serotonin, norepinephrine, things that make you happy, which actually then have a negative feedback on the cortisol and stop the adrenals from producing cortisol. So you actually promote a more restful state when you exercise. So exercise regularly. Reduce emotional stresses. So, sometimes we can't change our job. That's where main source for most people. Or we can change our husband or wife, right? We can't change them. But what we can change is how much laughter we bring into the day. Who else can bring laughter and joy? And where else can we get it? Laughter, literally, by the way, switches you from sympathetic to parasympathetic, just by laughing. So think about watching funny movies, walking outside. Don't watch the news. Don't watch the news. There's no point. Just watch shows. I'm not a big proponent of it, but don't watch the news. So bring a lightness into your life. Reduce physical stress. So this is where, kind of getting adjusted comes into play, because when you are out of alignment, it puts a physical strain and stress on your nervous system that controls your immune system. And then also, if you are in physical stress, you're going to, it's a stress. So your body goes in sympathetic dominance. So reduce physical stress, reduce physical injuries, deal with the things that hurt, kind of a thing. Get adequate sleep. This is the only time during sleep is the only time of the day where your cells are renewing, they're healing, they're re-energizing. When you cut yourself, they say something like 70% of your healing happens when you're sleeping, not when you're awake. So it's quite important that we get adequate rest. And every single day, our cells are going through this turnaround cycle where they're dying off and are reborn, dying off and reborn. So we want to have adequate rest so that the body can do its job. Now, some people say, I can't sleep, I can't fall asleep. Best strategy, get up early. Whatever time you get up even earlier if you want to sleep better. Get up early and get moving, okay? And stop watching television a good hour and a half before you go to bed. And lastly, and this is, because it's just a nice thing to do, wash your hands, there is no scientific data that shows that these antibacterial, antiviral sanitizers are doing any good. They're actually probably causing more harm because you're killing the good bacteria with the bad. So just wash your hands, but that's common practice. We all know that. And lastly, and most importantly, it's okay to get sick. When did it become not okay to call in sick? It's okay to have an exercising immunity. And if you truly let it run its course, if you truly honor your body's innate immune system, you'll be stronger come the next flu season, right? Well, now so your body won't even have a flu season because you're going to give it vitamin D, right? Because that's the main reason why the flu is seasonal. Now last, because I told you that tonight I'm only going to provide you information that's, you can research it. You can reference everything I said. Okay? There is no conspiracy theories. I mean, you can reference everything. Now, here's the one thing that gets thrown out a lot, is that flu vaccines contain ingredients that cause diseases and cause bad conditions. Now, I'll tell you, there's no research study that shows that. There's no even cohort studies where somebody says, I'm going to look at all the other research. I'm not conducting research. I'm just going to look at everything that's been done. That doesn't exist. But what does exist is the list of ingredients inside the flu vaccines. And then we know what those ingredients do to our bodies from other studies we've done, not related to the flu vaccine per se. Make sense? So what are the list of ingredients? Ethylene glycerol, glycol. It's an antifreeze. Phenol, also known as carboic acid. This is used as a disinfectant or dye. Formaldehyde. You know the things that they tell us not to inhale. It's cancer causing. Aluminum, which has been associated with Alzheimer's disease and seizures, and also cancer producing in laboratory mice. It's used to promote, to actually stress your immune system so that you get a higher immune response when you get the flu shot. So what happens when you get a flu shot, your body acts like it's been bombarded by 10 viruses, not just one, if that makes sense. So they're overstressing it. Thimerosal, which is mercury, it's a disinfectant, it's a preservative. It's the thing that we used to have in the old time thermometers, you know? They say don't break it. If you do, you know, the mercury can cause cancer. So it's in the flu shot and can result in brain injury and autoimmune disease. And lastly, antibiotics. By the way, everyone should know this because there are people that are allergic to antibiotics. Neomycin and streptomycin are used to prevent, you know, other bad bacteria growing in the vials. So if you know someone with allergic reaction, they should not be getting the flu shot. But they don't ask that. And that's what makes me really upset when you can get flu shot everywhere, you know, is that we're treating everyone the same and we're not making care individualized, and we're really putting more risk than perhaps benefit, right? So again, these are the ingredients and these are the known effects of the ingredients, but we cannot say that these ingredients in the flu shots cause that because that would be unscientific.